webinar, please do type them out in the chat box. We'll definitely address it during the Q&A sessions. Moving on to the plenary session, we have our first speaker for the day by Dr. Milana Abbasova. Dr. Milana Abbasova currently is a research coordinator and lecturer of the Department of English Language and Literature at Khazar University, Baku, Azerbaijan. She is the managing editor of the ENGLISHES LLL International Journal and one of the editorial assistants of Khazar Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences. Besides, she is also an assistant editor at Dictionary and Encyclopedia Center of Khazar University. She has taught and conducted research in different countries, and her interests rely on sociolinguistics, language planning, and policy. She has published some journal articles and monographs on a variety of topics in sociolinguistics and also presented papers at international conferences. We are happy to have you with us today, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for the great introduction. It's my honor and pleasure to be invited to this great academic get-together. As a presenter, as a distinguished presenter, I highly appreciate the opportunity bestowed on me to share the latest research findings at this international conference. Let me just share my presentation with you. Mm-hmm. Is it syllables or?
Yes, ma'am. I think we're able to. If you open your meeting, yes. Yes.
Yes, very good. Thank you. So the topic that I'm going to present today is the pace of change in English as a global language, stylistics and parsimony in social networks and mass media. First, I would like to shine the light, some light on the background and introduction to the area of inquiry I will lay out here.
Sorry, ma'am. Ma'am, have you presented the PPT still, or you had to open it, ma'am?
Can you see my presentation?
You can see your screen, but I think the PPT is not yet opened, ma'am. That's why.
Aha. Just a minute.
Yes. If you want, I can help you out with it. I have your presentation. Do you want me to share it?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, sure, ma'am. I'll just do this. You can stop presenting, ma'am. I'll share my screen.
Mm-hmm. I think I have stopped, right?
Yes, ma'am. You have stopped. I'll present my screen now.
Yes.
Are you able to see, ma'am?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please just change to the second slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So first I would like to shine some light on the background and introduction to the area of inquiry I will lay out here. English has been moving towards becoming the lingua franca of the world on a consistent and steady journey for more than 3 centuries. There are many historical, socio-political, geopolitical, and economic reasons for this we can't go into here. Ma'am, can I ask you just make it full screen?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Thank you. But compared to other languages, including Latin and French, which passed as lingua franca in the Middle Ages, English has long had the greatest worldwide reach. A language qualifies as global when it is adopted by other countries around the world and given a special role. According to Crystal's estimate, even though Chinese has the largest number of speakers, English is used in over 112 countries located in diverse continents. It is estimated that a quarter of the world's population can speak English. Needless to say, this all-rounded internalization of English has led to numerous and far-reaching cultural transformations in many parts of the world and in many well-entrenched cultures. entrenched cultures. Please change the, yes. As we know, the use of English in diverse regions of the world is not the same. Okay, Braj Kachru's three-circle model classifies how English had been acquired and currently spoken. The inner circle consists of countries where English originated before spreading to other parts. Approximately 380 million speakers, individuals, are currently inner circle speakers of the English language. On the other hand, the outer circle encompasses the non-native settings where English has been adopted as a second language. The language spread into these regions as a result of colonization by Great Britain. About 150 and 30 million people globally constitute an outer circle. Finally, the expanding circle is made up of nations where English is not spoken, but it is taught as a foreign language. The countries that belong to this circle were not colonized by the British and have not given any special governmental or official status. It is estimated that 1 billion people worldwide use English as a foreign language. Next, please. In the theory of applied linguistics, there is a lot of debate about the correct estimate of number of people belonging to the expanding circle, because a lot of the English users in this circle are learners of English as a foreign language. It is very difficult and controversial exactly how many constitute the expanding circle, which learner of English, what level of ability they should be at to qualify as a basic communicator of effective global economic, basic interpersonal meaning and language. So for the expanding circle, we can never be sure at any given point about the size. What we do know is that it's expanding very fast, certainly at a rate many times faster than the inner circle native speakers. I now turn to the matter of the pace of linguistic change, please. Many scholars have pointed to the proportionate changes in the linguistic system as the scene of social communication has undergone overly rapid changes after the Second World War and intensified incrementally over the last 3 decades. So here you see 3 proportionate in linguistic changes. They are economy, reduction, and morphological shortening. Please, ma'am, please.
Want me to change it, ma'am?
Yes, please. Parsimony. Herbert Spencer might not be the first to examine the principle of economy in the language system, but he is probably one of the first in history to do so in depth, and the philosophy of the style. He sees language as an apparatus of symbols for the conveyance of thought. So, and compares it with mechanical apparatus, stressing that the more simple and better arranged its parts, the greater will be effect produced. Please change. Actually, as Cannon noted, that language economy has a long history dating back to the Roman Empire. Furthermore, Cannon also claimed that the first embodiment of shortenings date back thousands of years. The short forms of the words and especially of the personal names were used to save place on the surfaces of where the text remained written. Therefore, the history of the short forms of the words and the language date back through the interactions used only the shortenings that never existed before now are getting greater value than ever. The majority of the abbreviations and acronyms, especially those coined as the result of the new inventions in technology, integrate into the language faster. Next slide, please. And when we speak about the economy in language in the area of Yeah, thank you. In the area of technological advances, we should start from the period when people could use just 50 symbols in one text message while sending mobile messages in early 1990s. Then the economy showed itself and a time deficit. When people try to pass much information in one single sentence, like the one that I've put in my presentation, I will be home late today. Even from the sample, it is obvious that they clipped words to keep their messages, for instance, under certain character limit. Next, please. In the modern world of digital technologies, in any leading and developed countries, people actively use the internet. That the internet spreads and influences especially the English language, leading to the imposition of the massive changes in the English language. Language change includes changes in vocabulary, orthography, grammar, pragmatics, and style. Language change changes in form and usage have caused some linguists to think of it as a new language called Internet. This is a statement given by Abdul and Rashid Ali. Next slide, please. Many words have adopted new meaning because of social networking. For instance, nowadays it is widespread to use the word friend, which is a noun, as a verb to friend, to unfriend, or the word Google, which is also a noun, as a verb to Google. The word friend is from Old English, dates back to the 13th century, has now got new meaning thanks to Facebook. Next slide, please. So shortenings, online interactions bring to the formation of newly born shortenings in the English language. Those shortenings used mostly by the younger generation differ from both in number and content. They mostly tend to use common images which are hardly understood by adults. McCrindle stated the special codes used by youth and which should be known by parents, and you can find them in the slide that we are currently sharing. Could you please change the slide?
Yes.
Thank you. The reduction of vowels, replacement of syllables or letters with numbers are very common in texting nowadays. Next slide, please. One of the most essential aspects of language are punctuation marks. Also, they are not really visible in spoken language. They have always been paramount in the written language. They can change and give many new meaning to the sentence. They signal when a sentence ends or starts, and just by looking at them, one can understand the context and the meaning of a sentence. In comparison with the English language, interrogative sentence is built up with the help of the intonation or just the punctuation mark in Azerbaijani language. Let's see the samples that I have put here on the slide. Sen Hindistan'ı sevirsen, it's in Azerbaijani. As an affirmative sentence, you love India, that is the translation in English, and just changing the intonation and not adding any auxiliary verb, changing any spelling or something, we built up an interrogative sentence in Azerbaijani language. So, sen Hindistan'ı sevirsen, that is the question, interrogative sentence in Azerbaijani, and do you love India in English? Even though the standard correct, could you please change the slide?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. Even though the standard correct use of, thank you, punctuation is still important in books, formal letters and messages to the public, with modern technology and the different code of languages that young people especially have started to use, punctuation seems to no longer be considered as important as before. In the sample given is the chart, you can find different meanings of combined punctuation marks. Next slide, please. Sometimes punctuation marks are omitted. Also, they should be there, and sometimes we see people use more than necessary in one sentence. This is an effort to add more emphasis or express their enthusiasm. And you see the samples given on the slide. Next slide, please. From the samples we went through, it obviously shows that in modern period, social media has tremendously affected global language with the usage of an immense number of neologisms, abbreviations, shortenings like abbreviations, acronyms, numeronyms, logograms, and emoticons. Social media is making its presence felt as old words get a new meaning. Shortenings pass from written language to verbal, causing ambiguity. For instance, according to Crystal's law, is one of the most frequently used shortening, both in verbal and written language. And when we touch this issue about ambiguity caused in social media texting, it always reminds me of something that still makes me lol. I had a very intelligent student. She always used to tag everything with lol. All the text messages she sent to me via social media, and I tried to find funny things in her message, as I knew only the meaning of laughing out loud. I started to suspect that she confused the real meaning of the abbreviation. Was at last she sent me a message like my friend from the college died in a car accident, and then lol. Only after that I was able to figure out the real idea what she meant till that time. It was not lots of love, it meant lots of love. If we ask the audience whether they use or they had a similar situation as mine, I'm sure that majority of them would love to share with us their stories. Some people accuse younger generation of spoiling the English language with all these diminutives, but the earliest examples are from the 19th century. It means that it is a long tradition, not a modern laziness. There is one crucial thing about it, that advanced technologies boosted this process. Thank you. Thank you so much for bearing with me. And this part is the conclusion. Then comes the reference. Please change, ma'am. Yes, and the last one. So with this, I bring this to a close, and I think the audience, thank the audience for bearing with me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We can have a question and answer session if anyone has participants. If you have any questions, you have any things to ask, ma'am, she'll be readily helpful to answer your questions. Ma'am, personally, as a teacher, I have one question, ma'am, related to your topic. Can I go ahead with asking that?
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. So normally you had talked about the way students will actually, the development of technology, the language has been, you use a lot of short forms. People tend to use a lot of short forms. I kind of see all that being reflected in the answer script sometimes when we go in for paper corrections and all that. So how do you actually view that, ma'am? As yes, technology on one side, it has developed, but on the other side, I feel that maybe the language part, the essence of language, the way they have gone ahead with writing down the words, vocabulary, it has actually reduced, because I still find students, instead of writing the, they write just the word D alone. I mean, it kind of becomes so, I mean, they'd be so obsessed with it because they're always with their mobile phones and all, and it's so easy for them. So how do you view this, ma'am? Because I really have a tough time with that portion of handling students alone. So can you just help?
Sure. Thank you for the question. You know, that this thing happened, let's say, some decades ago. One of the students, when was asked by the teacher to write down an essay, she wrote quote, like C-W-O-T, and it meant complete waste of time. And that was what she wrote on her paper, just for expressing her full time that she spent during the summer holiday. And when the teacher asked her, and the teacher was really excited about the answer that the 13-year school school girl answered in that way. Of course, these advanced technologies influence in different ways to the, let's say, academic writing of the students nowadays. But I mean that we should be very attentive as teachers, because it can spoil the language of the students, as they can use it in their messages, textings in social media. Of course, that is up to them, their own, let's say, preference. But when it comes to academic writing, we should be careful with it and should tell them that it's not actually normal. I mean, we really should be very careful and should tell them the difference between using these abbreviations, shortenings, and so on, in the difference between using them in academic writing and in text messaging.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ma'am, I think a participant has a question. He has raised his hand. Yes. Can I have... Ma'am, do you think that the short form language reduces the real essence?
Yes, of course, it brings to the ambiguity. As I told you, as I gave the sample regarding LOL, it is just one simple sample. But as I stressed before, I'm sure that our, let's say, all the people here, let's say all the participants of this conference, they just at least one time in their life they came across to this ambiguity with these shortenings. Because when you don't know the meaning of these shortenings, and as I showed in my, let's say, presentation, there are some shortenings or some images or, let's say, numeronyms that we should be careful as teachers, as parents, that maybe there is a secret code between the students, between the school children, and even there are, I came across some cases when children between themselves, they built up and they made up one alphabet, like using this alphabet in using it in messaging just as secret codes. So yes, it reduces the real essence of what to be conveyed. Right, exactly. Sometimes it brings to ambiguity if the person doesn't know the real meaning of the shortening. And it is like a dilemma for the person if she or he doesn't know it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Amitava Das, you had raised your hand. Please, sir. Yes, sir.
Welcome, ma'am, to India. Great. It was a great presentation, actually. Actually, I want to ask you a quick question that English is using those abbreviations, but what about the other languages? They are falling short, right? Aren't the other languages smart as English and all these things? Because we always text in our native languages too, but we don't use abbreviations in those languages, and we use abbreviations only in English. So why does it happen, ma'am?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. British linguist David Crystal stressed that with coming of the new invention, of the new technology, the language changes, and people think that, okay, now this invention will spoil our language, and it happens with all the languages. But when it comes to English language, as it is constitutes as to be a global language, it comes to the changes a lot. And you know, as you saw from the slideshow that the presentation that I presented today, the almost a majority of the people in the world, they use English language, even though Chinese is the mostly spoken language in the world, but as a native speakers, they speak their language, not other people. The majority constitutes English language. When it comes to other languages, of course, there are also many shortenings that are used in, for example, in my native language, in Azerbaijani language, and it is almost tends to be like an English language, but there are not many of them. I mean, they reduce vowels, they try to use, but no, they don't use, let's say, for example, numeronyms in our language, because, for example, when we say two, it means, let's say, two as a number, and at the same time we can use it like an direction, preposition of direction, right? But in Azerbaijani language, as my native language, there is no such thing. Or it tends to be like we come across some code switching in the social media or in texting, and while we speak with our, like, let's say, Azerbaijani native speakers, we sometimes tend to use English acronyms or abbreviations. It's also really very interesting part of it. But I think as let's say, your native, let's say, bearer, language bearer, you can just conduct and research, right? Like to see whether they use it, in which part they use, what kind of shortenings they use, are there numeronyms or not. For example, in Azerbaijani language, we don't tend to use numeronyms. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
More than welcome. I would love to stress one more thing, if you just...
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I think we should be very attentive in this texting, because it can really spoil our academic language. As we know, I always pay attention to what people and how people just text, okay, and they tend to reduce these vowels and so on, and then we can come across them as already split errors in their writings. Okay, it can influence a lot, so we should be very attentive. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that interesting session. And thank you for your time and effort that you have taken to share your thoughts and experience also with us. I hope all the participants had also enjoyed your session as well as me.